Okay, welcome back. Sorry, had to do some quick adjustments on my phone. So if you notice, it looks a little different. We got some guys in there, extra guy in there. But I believe I left off talking about collisions. Like I said, I normally don't move this way in my game. We set this up here, which is a very nice thing, but this checks you can only enter two arguments, an X and a Y. You can't enter to check against certain objects. So there's a little trick that I found to work around that. I had to work some logic out. If we do this in front of that, if place meeting X plus 6 is our move speed, and this is only to the right, can't tell it, we're only checking this for a right movement. And there's an object enemy, this will destroy. This will sense a collision. We could have changed it to something else, but we're going to say if we bump into this guy, we die. All these other ones will not allow you to bump into anybody. I only changed that for this one because they didn't want to waste time copying and pasting in other places. But made quite a few little tweaks to this, and this is going to be the kind of final. Once I go for this stuff, you'll be in a very good pace to kind of have your own little shooter with a lot of concepts. Okay, so that should cover collisions. I will demonstrate it real quick in the game, what's actually going on with that. And just remember, for collisions to work, they have to be marked solid for these type of collisions. So see, we can move up to this guy and we won't collide with him. We can move all around him. This guy here, same thing, except on this side. Remember, I only checked the move to the right. If we bump into him and moving to the right, it works. Our guy dies. And also added a new feature. I'll show you when we come out of here. Now our guy's dead. What happened? We can press enter and respawn. Okay, and you might notice our guy now has some health. We got another guy over here with some health, and we still got this guy. So now let's see what happens. We're going to shoot at this guy. Oh man, we hit him. Now he's chasing after us. Now the way it's set up, I have this guy where he's damaging you per cooldown timer. I could make it a little more realistic and make the guy move fast. But the bad part with move towards points, once the collision occurs, he'll just keep doing it over and over, and it looks kind of tacky. And I've also got this guy doing a couple other extra things. He's sort of into like a very, very low state machine. He's got a couple different states just determined by some if statements. But it's a very, very minor kind of sort of state machine stuff. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So we've seen what happens with this guy. We'll show you it again. We can shoot at him. We hit him and he starts chasing after us. Even if we try to run, he's going to keep chasing us, but he's still doing damage even though we're not near us. So once he's engaged, he will damage us. And he killed us, he goes away, and we made it where if he leaves the room, he dies, but guess what? He respawns. Okay, so cool. So now let's see about this guy. Boom, we shoot, now he's shooting back. And you can tell we're taking damage from his bullets. And then bam. So we added a couple more things, as you can tell, and you can actually have two at a time on you at once. Oh man, you're going to die a lot faster. You can actually get tag teamed by these enemies. So let's see what happens. We've seen if this guy goes out the room, he dies, but let's try to kill him real quick and see what happens. He'll also respawn if you kill him yourself. And my guy's health's low. We don't have anything set up for regaining health, so we'll just do refresh, and we'll test the same thing on this guy. Boom, boom. He's a little easier to kill, and we can see he respawns as well. Okay, so a couple new little features. This actually became a little bit more like a game. This is our collision stuff. Remember, place meeting. This is the advanced check that we did to determine if there is an enemy there. This will, in theory, move our guy, but actually not really. It just checks that movement. He doesn't actually move, and it says, okay, 6 coordinates to the right of our X and Y, current Y position. If there's an instance of OBJ enemy, we will destroy. So that way we can actually have a collision. That's the way to work around if you're using this system. You will need to hardwire this in front of this. This will solve the logic of that collision. Like I said, I normally don't have this. I do a different system. I just use Y equals Y minus 6 and so forth. That's normally how I do it. But I just wanted to show you this system is a little nicer, but all depends what you want. If you notice, we also got a CD, cold speed, and hit points. Cold speed coincides with that collision event. That is what is checked. We'll show you this one last time. Cold speed. So that's what that particular variable is controlling. We also added our hit points. And we set a collision event. If we bump into OBJ enemy, which is the red guy, we will be destroyed. That is our instance. So that happens. Let's see. Here in the step event, everything's pretty much the same, other than we've had if our hit points is less than 0, instance destroy. And we did do a draw event. Draw text is just a function to display text. Strings. Strings can either be variables, as or in this case, it will return the value in that variable, which has to be an integer or a floating point number. Or you could also do this, and inside those type in some text, and it would, you could say, hello, my name is Cool Guy, or whatever. Hi, my name is John. And it would show instead of that. But we don't want to see my name is John. We want to see our guy's hit points, and that's what that variable is representing. Remember, this HP does not mean hit points. This is just a variable I've determined to equal hit points. Pretty much any variable you set other than this green stuff, that is a variable specifically tied to an object that is built-in value. So for something like that, yes, that is an actual hard-coded variable. That's our character's X and Y position. That's a variable specific to that object. But this is an instance variable. That HP can mean anything. It doesn't have to mean health. It can mean, hey, person, and you could type a string there. So just remember, variables are whatever you put in there. Okay, so that covers our player guy. The only difference here, we added the same thing for the enemy. We're getting another collision with the other enemy. Nothing's going on there. Everything's the same in the bullet. Now, if you notice, we do now have an object E bullet. That is what our original enemy is shooting at us now. And this is the way I could have done it earlier without having to use accessors. Because if you notice, that is our player's health. But wait, there's no dot notation in front of it. That's because this is specifically in a collision vent with the keyword with other, automatically returns that. Now, but that does put you inside the scope of that object. Play around with it. It can have some unexpected results. Just know this changes your scope to the other instance, so that can mess with some variables. But as you notice, we are accessing the player's hit points without dot notation. That is because of that with other. If we didn't have that, we would have had to get the ID. And you'll see I did it on our other guy, just so you can see it. It's not just players that can do that. So that's eBullet. That's all that's going on there. We do have a step event. So we've seen the collision event. Let's check out eBullet's step event. This is sort of like an auto tracker. This is a computer. It's not going to have mouse coordinates. I mean, you do some funky stuff, but this right here is some logic we worked in, and I like to do extra checks. We say if instance exists, object player. We really shouldn't use obj player there, because that's not an instance, that's an object. But there's only one copy of that, so it's okay. You typically want to have your IDs in there. Now, if we had two different enemies, we can make as many copies as we want as obj enemy. We could drag 30 of them guys in there. There would be 30 copies of obj enemy. So if we have this, if SS exists obj enemy, it's going to choose randomly between any of those 30. Only because there's one object player, this stays true. This is not 100% accurate. Remember, if you have more than one copy, this is a random choice. It will not specifically be the one. You would have to use instance nearest, blah, blah, blah. The best way, stick with the ID. But there's only one of these guys, obj player, so this works. Move towards point, obj player.x, obj player.y, speed is 6. It's saying if this guy is there, move towards him. This is our step event. Remember, this is acted out every frame of the game. And this is a Gamemaker function. If, well, not the if, that's an if statement. Instance exists. See down here, this is a function. It requires an object. And it actually requires, move towards point. But yes, instance exists does require, that's a function too, but it only checks one. Talking about the move towards point. This function requires 3 different values. An X, a Y, and a speed. The speed is 6. Okay, so that's our eBullet. That's new. We got everything there. Now we do have a cold det and a cooldown here. Cold det is something that I like to work in that helps establish logic with just a simple variable without doing too much stuff. It's something I found out makes stuff easier. You'll see here, cold det equals 1. This is an instant variable. So when an object bullet collides with this guy, this is turned to 1. By default is 0. So we see now when this guy dies, he's spawned randomly in the room now. So we can do that. If we look at instance create layer, it needs, well, that's our random range. But if we look at instance create layer, we need an X, Y, layer ID, or name, object, and the other stuff is optional. But for our X and Y, this is just a random number between 100 and 1300. Same thing here, random number there. And lastly, what it spawns, the instances layer and obj enemy, because this is our enemy. When he dies, we want him to respawn. Now we also have a respawner. A lot of times I like to work them in there, but as you can see, it works. You can't hard code them in this way. This is all in the step event. So this will work. And we see if cooldown is less than 0 and cold det equals 1. So remember, once a bullet collides with him, he goes from 0 to 1. So now he's engaged and a player exists is true, he will create an instance of his bullet. Same thing, you can shoot it once a second. And remember, this cold.dat is an instant variable. This is not an instance ID. This is just logic that I come up with. Cold.dat equals 1 when they collide. This returns no ID. You see, this is an instant variable set to 1. And we are just using that to sort of put it in an attack state. This is a very simplest and not almost sort of true of a state machine, but so basic. Not really, but yeah, kind of. So there's that. That's our OBJ enemy. Here's our OBJ enemy number 2. You see this guy, he's got some stuff going on with him. He's got all different kind of stuff: a create, a step, a draw GUI, a collision with object bullet, collision with object player, outside a room. You can stack a lot of events here. And for this guy, he's got some health. He's got a cold.dat. That's not an instance ID. That's just an instance variable, a cooldown, and an E attack. Now remember, these variables represent whatever you want them to be, because they are integer values at the end. He's got a draw event. Now this X, Y, Y minus 40, remember that's going to the lower end of Y, so this is drawing above him. Our player, we got an X minus, drawing it to the left. This is just quick little tweaks so we can see it in certain areas, but play with them numbers. That is actually where the text is drawn to, the X and Y coordinates. That can be an object point, actual typed in numbers, whatever, and that's the variable is drawing. That could be a string, but it's not. It is a variable. If this enemy collides with object bullet, he is awakened. Cold.dat equals 1 on him. And if he collides with a player, cold.dat equals 3. Cold ID equals other ID. Oh man, he is getting our ID. What's this guy going to do with it? Probably nothing any good. Okay. So now we are in the step event. If enemy's health is less than 0, instance destroy, instance create layer, same thing as the other guy. Random range. The only difference is we're spawning OBJ enemy 2 instead of enemy 1, and now you can see that random range. You can just choose iRandom and choose between just one number, but I like this one because this makes sure our guy doesn't spawn outside the room where he's always visible in them coordinates. So that's why I chose those values. Feel free to change whatever. And here we see if cold.dat is greater than 1. Remember, this is not an instance ID. This is just a state variable that I've determined. And instance exists, object player equals true, and there's a place meeting between object player is false. Place meeting is X, Y object. We're checking that. We're checking object enemies X, Y, collision with object player. If that is false, he is going to move towards the point. I did it this way to kind of get out of that tacky behavior that this can do without that. This guy would just keep moving, and sometimes it can look good, but to me it doesn't. And here we got the cooldown, if cooldown, and now this is the difference. This is set up as sort of what I like to call like a basic attack for sort of like an RPG game, or you could have it with a lot of different stuff, auto attacks in different type of games. But we're seeing if cold.dat is, if CD is less than or equal to 0 and cold.dat equals 3, but hey, here's one. Remember, when it collides with what player, Yeah, when it collides with player, it turns to 3. So he's got to catch the player first. Once he hits the player, then he's turned to cold 3, and he can keep attacking. And we see, and there is an instance of player, cold that's 3, and cold that's less than 0. So this guy's got 2 states. He's got a charge state, and he's got an attack state. And we see now, I've used a different variable, but this is cold ID, which if we notice here, when he collides with the player, that cold ID is storing our player's instance ID. Now we could just kind of reference this guy since he's the only one, but it's not a good habit to do. It's a good habit to get these IDs, get it hardwired in, get used to it. It took me a while to figure this stuff out because I saw a lot of tutorials. Maybe somebody said it because they cover so much and I missed it, but something so easy can cause so many problems. And some guys, they just skip it, and this can be very vague in the manual. You know, people interpret stuff different. But, you know, this is how it works, and it works. And we see once he makes an attack, he can't attack again for about 2 seconds. And then now we have, if our guy goes outside of the room, he is destroyed, but there's another random one. And outside the room means they can walk out here. This is just a visible space that's projected onto your screen. Your player and enemies can go out here in a la-la land, but you can't see what's going on out here. This is called outside of the room. So when that, because this guy will chase after you. So say he defeats our guy, he's just going to run off in a la-la land. So if we don't have that instance destroy, he'll just keep going out there for however long we let him. So that's why we have him destroyed, and he respawns. And you may notice in this video, you've seen instance destroy, instance destroy. It's a good habit when you no longer need these instances to clear them up, because especially like I've cleared the logic up before some of this stuff happened, but if you're not careful, even with if statements and simple clicks, you can have a guy just shoot off millions and thousands, hundreds of thousands of abilities, and it can really glitch and freeze up your computer, cause your game to crash, and it's not what you want. Unless that's what you're trying to go after. Maybe it is, but that's not normally what people are after. So there's that. Let's see, I think we haven't covered object player. We'll take a quick peek. Cold speed, yeah, I actually think we've been in here already. Yes, we did. We started here. Okay. Now we have an OBJ responder, but hey, wait, we got an object without a sprite. But this object is in our room, and you see we're on the instances layer on the top. This object is actually in the room. It's right there. It's real hard to see because it doesn't have a picture, but that little blue square thing is just an imaginary representation of this. It's not every object you're going to have in your game is going to have a picture. We see this one, if you press the enter key, the room restarts. You can have game managers that do all different kind of stuff, keep track of stuff, saving, blah, blah, blah. There's so much stuff that gets put into these unsprite objects, and they do serve a function. And we see we created some extra sprites, created the enemy 6 and the sprite bullet. A little quick trick, but just remember, when you're doing your games, this is just quick to get it done with, but we got a basic sprite. He's 128 by 128. So when I made his bullet, all I did was duplicate a copy of him, and you can do that the same way you create, right click, and then you see duplicate. And then what I did on this duplication, I just lowered his value by half. it just makes it smaller than him. But like I said, when you're doing these games yourself, you really want to work on these graphics. That's one thing I'm going to start really working on to improve on, is getting better with my stage design, really making it pop out more, because now I'm feeling more comfortable with my code. I'm not a master coder, but I know enough to get by now. So now it's time to up my graphics game. But now I believe that really covers some of the stuff that I got left off. We saw tiles, instance layer. We got multiple tile layers. Now this background, you could put like a background picture, but just remember, if you paint tiles over it, it's at the bottom, it's going to be covered up. You could have like a picture of a sky up there and have a little portion of the room. You can get creative, do whatever you want. People use it for different stuff. And up here we have some shortcuts. That play button right there by the finger looks like a bug. That's how you start it. The squares pause, open, load, save, that kind of stuff. Hopefully you can figure it out. If you're getting ready to program, you can figure out what buttons. A lot of people get into tutorials and drift off and right click here, go here. You really want to be more focused on the logic. But that, I believe, covered everything I missed earlier. If not, if there's anything, check it out. This should give you a pretty good grip on how to proceed. You could actually give your players some defense or shields, or add another special attack. From here, you can start doing a lot of stuff. So you've got a good foundation, and keep building on it, and always have fun and make great games. And remember, check me out on Patreon, like and subscribe to the YouTube, and feel free to donate on Patreon. Remember, trying to get this, my goal is to get a game produce developed, so any bit helps, and that's awesome. Thank you. Hope this helped you.